Wraeclast Weekly. Hello, welcome back to another video. Last Wraeclast Weekly we had a first impressions deep dive with Aphelion PoE in the Wraeclast Weekly special. That was the first time I did a similar show, so hope you guys enjoyed it. But this time we're back to the normal scheduled programming, where I'm just gonna be talking about the same things, but now that the dust has settled. So I've had time to think about the first impressions and so on and so forth. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and let's jump right into it. But first, if you want to help me out here to grow on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and comment on the video. Thank you. Thank you in advance. Alright, so you can see the topic list on the screen right now. We're going to be talking about Archnemesis League mechanic, Atlas changes, and Endgame Bosses. Alright, first, Archnemesis. So what do I really think about it? Right, my first impressions still stand, that it's quite a simple league mechanic. That's not to say that you can't do interesting things with it, but it's fine that it's simple considering all the other things we have going for us. Right? I'm definitely not one of those people who finds it tedious to engage with the league mechanic, because I'm of the mind of, if it's in my map, I'll just do it. I'm not speedrunning the game, I just want to enjoy the things that are presented to me, so I'm enjoying the league mechanic. But, that said, the recipe system can get tedious, right? So let's say you're going for several recipes, or you're trying to get some specific recipe off the ground for challenges or whatnot. A lot of pieces are required for other recipes, so a lot of things are highlighted. And then you have to manually search for the one you want anyways. And it's like the highlight system works early game when you don't get that many pieces, but once you already have that many once you already have so many pieces and you drop more than 2 per map, it's just like, what do you go for? Do you complete a recipe, but then maybe those pieces are too rare afterwards, and then you're again bottlenecking yourself into something else? It's like, it's a bit messy. Also, apparently there is a way to target farm these pieces, because each piece is associated with a certain layout monster type that has a certain mod on it. But as there is no comprehensive list in what base layouts these certain monsters spawn, I mean, you could go to PODB and one by one sort them all out and then figure out in which base layouts they will spawn, or which base layouts they spawn, and then write it all down and try to target farm. But again, because of how the game works, right? And the further you go in the Atlas, you add extra monsters on top of everything, like the new influence monsters, the old influence monsters, right? If you're doing Shaper, Elder, Guardian maps, whatever, the Sextons add extra monsters, right? So you can have map mods that increase monster variety, so it just dilutes the pool that you can't be sure that the monster you want will drop the exact piece you want, right? Because you drop more than 2 pieces per map or per area, right? But that doesn't mean that you will get to drop the same piece from that right monster, or get to drop the right piece from the right monster. Now, that means maybe you can target farm it and you're more likely to get it. But yeah, so how I've been doing, I'm just smashing maps and hoping for the best, right? I will put a list of what kind of mod is associated with which kind of piece on the screen, so you can make your own judgment call, whether you maybe know where these kind of monsters spawn. I personally have not seen map mods correlate with the drops. So you can roll extra ES on the map now, on the monsters. So you would think maybe Arcane Buffer is more likely to drop on these maps, but I personally haven't seen any correlation. Now, maybe that's just being unlucky. As I said, there's only let's say 4 pieces dropped per map. There's thousands of monsters in a map. Well, not thousands, maybe 1,000 monsters, more give or take, maybe a little bit more in a map. So how does it choose which monster it will drop from, right? So there's the list. Do with it what you will. So yeah, for me personally, the biggest problem is the bottlenecking of a certain piece for a recipe or a combo. I'm going, not even talking about innocence touched, like that recipe, cray cray. Probably one and done kind of thing, because yeah, I'll probably try to go for it once and then I'll try to juice up the drops. But farming for it, yeah, no, I don't think it's gonna happen. It's just too complicated. You have to keep in mind so many pieces, so many sub-recipes that you have to do before you can do that recipe. And that's just one piece out of 4 that you have to complete to get like good payout. And the UI is not very helpful. Like, it mumbo jumbles. It just will put the new pieces you get in the places of pieces you've spent, right? So you either have to recognize them by sight, and some pieces are very similar looking, or you have to. I just resort to manually searching in the highlight items box, right? Because they just look so similar. Some it's red on red, similar red, or especially the gray or like frosty color, blue, light blue thingy. They're just so similar. There's like 3 or 4 different ones that look similar. It's like, there is not enough, even though GGG said that you will be able to recognize these pieces on site, like the higher tier pieces. I mean, yeah, of course, the super high tier pieces, they are distinguishable, like the Lunaris touched and so on and so forth, right? They are distinguishable. That's a hard word. But like the tier 2 pieces from tier 1 pieces, I mean, some of them they just blend in, and there is no separation between these higher tier pieces. So it's a bit meh. I mean, GGG already said that they will be working on improving the UI. And I mean, I don't want them to hold my hand too much, right? But having a drop-down menu of like recipes, and then you could highlight the pieces and it will let you know when this recipe is available or ready and so on and so forth. Like, especially for the more complicated ones. I mean, I could see them not doing that because GGG is notorious for just not doing these things, right? There's so many things you just have to look up online. There's so many guides already for the recipes, right? I don't know. I don't think they will do the in-game recipe look up thingy, but I could be pleasantly surprised. Now, that was a lot of doom and gloom about Archnemesis. But there are cool things about Archnemesis, like the player recipes, right? The stacking of unique drops, stacking of divination, currency, scarab drops, right? There's this really popular recipe going around where it drops a ton of scarabs. And if you wanted to get more currency, you would just swap mirror image for assassin, for example, and you would get way more currency items, right? So this is, and it's pretty achievable. I feel like the most, there are only few pieces that are relatively rare, like vampiric and deadeye, I think, because you need 2 vampirics for this recipe, but I've completed it several times and it is juicy. 100% recommended. The player recipes are my favorites. I have made the divination card one, and I have made the unique one, and the unique one is fun. I mean, it drops a tons of uniques. I don't know if it's a way to farm super rare uniques, because I did stack a bunch of rerolls, like 10 rerolls, I think, or over 10 rerolls, and the best thing I got was Taste of Hate. I mean, nothing to sniff at, but maybe that's something to look into if you want to. I mean, most of these recipes will include Treant Horde, because it is a big item generator. Treant Horde is like must have in every recipe. And for divination card one, what happened for me is that it would just stop dropping individual divination cards and start dropping stack decks. Like when you went to higher into rarity, rolling rarity, it would just drop stacked decks. So I ended up with like 30 stacked decks by the end of the chain, but not rare reroll divination cards. So you stack bunch of rerolls, right, for rarer results, and it would just give me stacked decks. So I don't know, I have to experiment more with that recipe. I mean, right now I'm going for challenges, so I only specific recipe I'm holding out for is this one on the screen. So yeah, those are cool. So yeah, the individual recipes, basically summary, individual recipes, player recipes, I mean, great. The in-game recipes, pain in the ass. So yeah, maybe they will make it easier. Maybe people will come out with information which map layouts you can target farm or more target farm certain pieces. So maybe that will be helpful. Now let's move on to Atlas changes. Overall, I like it. Once my build was able to, and it didn't take a long time, I could progress through the Atlas fairly fast. I feel like I completed the non-unique maps. I want to say twice as fast, and I mean like all the completions. I want to say twice as fast as I would do it in past leagues. And that doesn't mean that my characters were necessarily worse, even though this league I'm playing full meta, so we'll talk about it in another video. But yeah, it was just so smooth. Kirak missions, Horizon Orbs, and I had no problem progressing higher tier, getting to higher tier maps. I mean, once I've gotten to tier 14 plus maps, I've just stayed there. And with the new Watchstones, I'm just doing tier 16s and nothing else, right? I've gotten 3 Watchstones. I'm only missing Uber Elder one. So yeah, the new Atlas is just so smooth experience. I really love it. I know that there are some people that might not like it, but that said, again, smooth experience. If you have some Horizon Orbs, Kirak, relying on Kirak a little bit, his missions, his inventory, right? It's really great. Love it. New Atlas. Love it. Because in the past, I felt like Watchstones locked you into certain tiers of maps a little bit too long. And you had to, even if, let's say, you had completed that tier of maps, and I'm talking about before you start doing tier 16s, right? When you had completed that tier of maps, you still had to do a few more to get the Watchstones anyways. So you weren't necessarily doing maps that you needed completion on. Whereas in this Atlas, you might just do each map once until you get to 16, tier 16 or tier 14 plus maps. Just do each map once for the completion and move on to the next tier and so on and so forth. So, great. Love it. Now, talking about Atlas passive tree, I had specced into Kirak nodes and some more map drop nodes, right? But I feel like once you've gotten all the completion or most of the completion done, I've just like ditched most of the map drop nodes, and I might drop eventually even more map nodes. The remaining map nodes, I might ditch it and go for the boss nodes, because I find that this league is all about killing bosses. So I'm just gonna stick to boss killing. I'm really liking the Atlas 3. It's great. It lets you concentrate on certain things that you really like. Like for me, it's Harvest and Expedition. And with all the juicy scarab drops, like you drop so many scarabs. And I'm not talking about Archnemesis recipe, which is a contributor, right? But just from the those little shrines, the new influence shrines, lets you drop so many scarabs that I could I feel like also they're so cheap to buy now because of this, that I can permanently just have Expedition on my maps. I could have the Strongboxes permanently. I could have Harbies permanently or Abysses permanently, right? To drop those juicy 6-mod Abyssal Jewels, right? You could stack all of these things and you could have them on every map. They are so cheap to buy. You could almost self-sustain it even. I feel like. If you get a little bit lucky, and you drop so many scarabs from these shrines if you stack them right. So it's just great. This league is really all about min-maxing those few league mechanics that you really like. And you can respec easily. Like for me, just from the drops, I didn't have to buy, or almost didn't have to buy, any respec points from Kirak. From just the drops you get, to respec some nodes or into not full respec, of course. Full respec would be quite expensive. But just respecing out of the map nodes, specking into boss nodes, it just, you get plenty drops, is what I'm saying. You get plenty of respec drops. It's been great. I love the Atlas tree, passive tree. I love the insane scarab drops. Actually makes me feel like I shouldn't hoard them. I should just spend them. You get so many, so that's great. Now, speaking of the endgame new bosses. Right, so I went in without prior experience into these bosses. I didn't look up anybody. I didn't look up any guides. I let my build shine. And I mean, I'm playing a full meta build, so it wasn't, these are like story mode bosses, right? You get to experience them, I feel like, on easier difficulty probably. And they were fine. For the most part, they were fine. I really like this, the Black Star one. And the Searing Exarch was also okay. Now, the bigger problems I was having was with the Unending Hunger and Eater of Worlds. So, let's talk about that. The Unending Hunger, right? The big problem in this fight is also because the color scheme. I mean, a lot of bosses have color schemes, and it's a lot of same color on the same color, but some colors, like the Searing Exarch, for example, it's kind of easier to distinguish, or the contrast is higher. Because in this fight, it's just like brownish grayish on brown gray, and the contrast is not so great. Like, I don't know what I mean, most of the time you can't stand in anything, right? But like, you can't, like, how can you, like, I don't understand what's really going on. There's some green stuff going on. There's desecrated desecrated ground, right? You can't stand in it. And then there's some other things, and the goop. And I'm like chalking this down on being the first time I fight this boss, right? Because there is that sequence where you have to go the phase like Shaper, where you have to run through monsters, right, to get back into the boss arena. And I personally couldn't find any indication on the first go through. I couldn't tell any indication where you were supposed to go. Like, even looking back on this fight, like, I can't really tell what was there. Are these like those pillar thingies? Are they indicators of where you have to go? I just can't tell. And even, yeah. And also, the thing is, like, if you die, you go back straight to the boss arena. It doesn't make you do this run again. So I'm wondering, what if you just logged out? Do you go back to boss arena? It's like, I don't understand what you're supposed to do. There's no mini-map for these little islands you have to take. I just don't understand. I have to do it a few more times and actually see what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to get from these islands. Because I mean, obviously, I didn't find the exit. I died from the exposure of these stacks and getting zerged by these little monsters and being slowed by the vines when you're inside this goop. Because I couldn't find the exit. I didn't understand, or I couldn't tell what was the tell to get to the next island or get to the exit. Just couldn't tell. And that wasn't a very nice experience. I mean, I feel like for most other things, it's pretty fairly well telegraphed of what you have to do, even though, I mean, maybe I wasn't doing my best, right? But for this, it was just so frustrating. Like, what? The other thing I had a little bit of problems with is the Eater of Worlds boss fight, where you have, I mean, Maven is helping you, and you have like these little orb thingies you have to touch, but there's no indicator how much time you have left or what exactly, because I never succeeded at this phase. It was just like I triggered some of them, and then I just died, and I'm not sure if I died because I was too slow. I don't know. Yeah, I probably died because I was too slow, but I don't know when you run out of time. Like, how do you tell when you run out of time? Is this just like practice thing? And again, this is one of those things. It's like how much time you really have to do those orbs. I mean, yeah, bit frustrating. I feel like if you had insane DPS, this would be a non-issue. And that's another one of those things. It's like, well, DPS solves all your problems. At least in softcore, it solves all your problems. Another thing I've heard from people, I haven't farmed these apart from, well, I haven't done them apart from doing the story one, and I'm getting into farming them. But I've heard people say that their life is a bit too low, or that life could be improved. But I feel like that's one of those things. Is like if you have enough DPS, you make most content trivial, right? That's not only true for the new bosses. It would be true for any past boss, like Shaper, Elder, Uber Elder, so on and so forth, right? So I don't know until I experience it myself exactly with rolling them, because you get invitations that you can roll, right? Before I experience that myself, I can't speak on this, right? I'm pretty close to doing the first invitations on the green side, so the Unending Hunger. So yeah, maybe next week, Wraeclast Weekly, will talk about that difficulty ramp up, because I'm sure there are some mods that make these fights way more difficult than others. But yeah, we'll talk about it next time. Alright, so that's all I wanted to talk about this Wraeclast Weekly. If you got this far, let me know which of the new bosses was your favorite and why. And thanks so much for watching. Bye.